everyone, Nadia B here. Welcome back to my channel. Welcome to the new subscribers, and thank you for those who are already supporting me. Before I forget, please click subscribe, notify, the like and comment on this video if you are enjoying it. My name is Nadia B and I am running the channel The Curated Shelf, which focuses on literature that has helped shape my life, fictional and non-fictional. This series is looking at spiritual literature and self-help literature, and from today's title itself you can see that we'll be looking at The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. I just want to say that I chose this book because of the conversations that I've been having this week with different people, from friends to just contacts that I have. And the reason why I picked The Curated Shelf was because I picked the title for this channel because I believe that so much of what we read can influence how we think and behave and the words that we use, and also our life decisions. And the more I speak to people, the more I kind of like think of some of the books that have helped me, and I'm always passing on recommendations. And then this channel was born from kind of like a mixture of that and some of the fictional work I love as well. So anyway, going back to today's book, The Four Agreements, and why I chose this specifically was this week I had a couple of conversations with friends about the issue of the words that we use and the language we used. And I've already mentioned this from a few videos ago on affirmations, but this book came to mind specifically for two reasons. One, because of its very powerful but simple message. I think Don Miguel does it very, very well in terms of simplicity, but also the clarity he brings. And secondly, this book came to mind because, to be very honest with you, I absolutely find the cover of this book and the design that's used stunning, very beautiful. And when I was talking to people, literally the cover came to mind, and I just thought, yeah, it is a good book, and it's helping me to remember a message. And if it does that, then it's, in a way, it's doing its job. So yeah, I picked The Four Agreements because of the fact that it's a book that I picked up about several years ago. It was published in the late 1990s, and then it had a reprint in 2012, and that's when I discovered it, when it had this second edition published. I think it's second edition, but it had a reprint in 2012 basically, and became very popular. And there was other books as well that were out at that time, but I picked this one up. And I won't open it up because it is a treasure trove in there, but there are some beautiful paintings in there, and the way it's just written, it just captured me. The publication is from Amber Allen Publishing. I was about to say another publisher actually, so it's a good thing that I checked. And credit to Don Miguel Ruiz for putting together a beautiful masterpiece that I think is. So why this book, and what were the impressions that I have of it? Well, first of all, I love it because it has four agreements which are very simplistically made. The first agreement is really the fundamental, and then the following three come from it. And the very first agreement he goes into, and sorry, before I go into that, this is using Toltec wisdom. That's what they call it, Toltec wisdom. And a little bit about the Toltecs is that it is from the pre-Columbian era, approximately around 7th to 8th century Common Era. So from 7th, 8th century. And the civilization is known to be profoundly rich in terms of scientific and arts. And the culture and the wisdom from that era is very influential still today. And it is from the part of the world which we now recognize as the southern part of Mexico. So really that bridge between the North America and South America. And I find it fascinating. I still don't know enough about the culture and the people from that civilization. But I do know that this is what these four agreements are stemming from, and where Don Miguel Ruiz gets a lot of his thinking from as well. So what is the first agreement? The first agreement he comes up with is be impeccable with your word. And I absolutely love this fundamental principle. And the first time I read that, I actually have to say that I balked a little bit. I just thought, well, yeah, that's a tough line to walk. I mean, be impeccable with your word, and it had a feeling of perfection to it. But the more I have read different forms of self-help, the more I've gone into my own journey, I've realized the depth of this first agreement. He talks about how the words that we use, the language that we use, can have a profound impact on our, not just our communications, but also our relationships. And why I found this really fundamental was he talks about how, as a society and a culture, we're always looking to fit in, to survive, and sometimes that can end up compromising our truth and our integrity. And one of the things about being impeccable with our words is that the words that we use with other people, towards them in a conversation, having a conversation with someone, or having a conversation about someone, or even some of the words and the language we use in our own minds when we're talking and we're thinking, can have this really profound effect on how we feel and our behaviors and sometimes our decisions. And it can become in a form, I mean, these are the words I'm using now. My interpretation of it is that there can be some kind of a corruption of our thoughts because of the words that we've used. So I found this book really, really helpful in terms, this first agreements are really helpful in terms of reminding me that sometimes what I say, even if I've said it and I didn't really mean it that way, the impact that can have is actually quite crucial. And he also reminds me of the fact that, as mammals, many mammals have memory. Memory is very present in animals as well. But as humans, we have memory and then we have judgment. And when we combine those two, the word remember literally means to reform. Member means body. So when we reform and we recreate that memory, we recall it, we recreate it, with that comes judgment. So every time we remember something with judgment, if it's imbued with harsh words, or words that are just not true to who we are in terms of the truth or integrity, it can have an effect which can be quite actually detrimental and in the subconscious. So I personally found that first agreement, as I've gone through like my life and bit by bit, quite important, because it's kind of like a good reminder that I try to be careful of what I say, basically, and what I write, and even sometimes in my thinking. And it's not perfect, but it's definitely a fundamental. The second agreement he comes up with is don't take it personally. Don't take anything personally. That's what he writes. And once we have the first agreement down, actually the second one is quite freeing. That's what I'm going to say. That's what I think of when I think of don't take anything personally. And that's because I think that, the way I've come to that conclusion is that a lot of the times what I come across, including something that I might find offensive or hurtful, or I might find something that I just don't agree with, even in terms of that, is that it's very much based on opinions that we have about each other, opinions that we might have about events and surroundings. And to be careful that sometimes the opinion is more about the person that's giving the opinion than whatever they are forming the opinion about. And I found that really kind of like interesting in terms of today's life and world, that I fall into that trap quite often, but it has been helpful to me to remember that not to take everything personally, because it can be quite freeing. And also it allows me a sense of breathability, because when I see something that I find upsetting or I want to have an objection towards, I do really ask myself, is this about me, or is this about really where that person is at or where that situation is at? And so I've really kind of like found that second agreement, I come back to the word freeing, but liberating. That's another way to put it. The third agreement he comes up with is don't make assumptions. And I think about, the fact that it is true that sometimes I have seen something and inferred quite a bit and basically created a story in my mind about something or someone or an event or a situation. And kind of like the third agreement goes in principle with actually the first one, be impeccable with your words. The second one, don't take anything personally. And then the third one being, don't make assumptions. It really has helped me because I then start to question and ask, is that true? Am I really seeing the full picture? And it reminds me of today's life in society where sometimes I can make a judgment about something, or I can make a story about something or someone, and then I have to ask myself, but do I know the full details, the full facts? Do I know what's happening behind the scenes? And it has helped me sometimes to kind of like take a step back and think, I might not know it all here. And that also gives me the chance to give somebody else an opportunity, and to just kind of like not be so judgmental and harsh and reactive towards others. And then the final principle that he says, the fourth one he says, is to try our best and to just do the best we can, and to always try our best. And I quite like that because of the fact that he's reminding me that this is progress, not perfection. It's about just doing what we can. And when I think of that, I also remember that everybody else is also trying their best. And it might sound a bit strange, but there are times when I've seen something and I've thought, well, didn't they think? And then I'm like, perhaps they did it, they're just doing the best they can as well. So the fourth agreement has helped me in the terms of like, when I do the first three agreements, be impeccable with your word. The second one, don't take anything personally. And then the third one, don't make assumptions. And when I trip up on those, which invariably happens, the fourth one reminds me that I'm just doing the best I can as well at that moment. So would I recommend this book? I wholeheartedly would. I think it's a fantastic book, especially if you want something that's not too detailed, but has enough structure and guidance to give, again, thought to some of the things that we say, some of our behaviors, our actions and our words, but also reminding us that as we go through society and life, that other people are also, also living up to the four agreements in their own way. And and I found this tremendously liberating, and also it's given me a chance to revisit these principles. Like I said, I picked up this book about 8 years ago, and I thought it would just be kind of like, I remember thinking like, this is so simple. And I just thought, this is so simple, this is so easy. And at the same time, I was kind of like, but it's a bit stringent on what it's saying. And, years later, when I'm talking to people and having a chat with them, it just also reminds me again, when I'm saying to them, that I've had to look at are my words too harsh, or have I made a judgment and inferred something? And the last one, do I need to ask a little bit more, do a bit more research and homework, question something? And those things help me alleviate my fears. They help me make progress. They help me, motorbike going outside. Sorry about that. They help me just alleviate my fears. They help me make progress. They help me just be a little bit more kinder towards myself and towards others. And I think that has been good in terms of my own thought, So this book is actually a very good one when I say, this channel is called The Curated Shelf, because it is a great reminder of why I began this, about what goes into my mind and then how I practice it in daily living. So I hope you find this helpful. I'd like to know from you, what are the perhaps the more lighter books or the more simpler books with some very strong principles that you've read? Perhaps you've read them within a couple of days, that you want to mention here. And what are the principles that you've been able to take from them? And if you found this helpful, please like and subscribe and share it with others, as I've mentioned before. And I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.